And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101 on a Thursday evening, coming down to the end of the week. So, in that sense, this is our weekend edition, if you will, on a Thursday night. Welcome to all of you. Tonight, we are going to we're going to be talking with Khemraj Ramjatan, the leader of the Alliance for Change, the AFC. The AFC, as you know, is part of the AFC, APNU coalition, and we are going to be talking to Brother Khemraj about some of the issues that the AFC has been raising in recent times. Of course, the AFC came out with a statement a couple of weeks ago saying that it is ready, it is willing to join the PPP in a renegotiation of the oil contract, and that caused some stir in the news because the PPP, after criticizing the coalition government for what they call a bad oil contract, once the PPP got into office, they have refused to renegotiate the contract, citing, of course, what they call the sanctity of contracts, that once they inherited a contract from a previous government, that they were not going to renew that contract. And those of you who saw the interview that Glenn Lyle did with Vice President Barra Jagdeo, it was clear, two things were clear in my view about that interview. One is that clearly Jagdeo knows more about oil than Glenn. I mean, Glenn has been dabbling in the issue, but he doesn't have an economic, a technical understanding of the issue. It is not to say that he doesn't know anything about the issue. He does know a lot. But when compared to Vice President Jagdeo, clearly Glenn doesn't have the kind of grasp of the economics around oil and gas. But the other thing that was very clear was that Glenn has Jagdeo number, meaning that Glenn kept asking me, so what would you have done different if you were in the position of the APNU AFC? And Jagdeo could not answer that. He could not answer that. And it was an interesting interview. But here is the AFC, whose chairman or former leader, Raphael Trotman, was the lead person when the APNU AFC signed that contract. The AFC has now said that it is ready to renegotiate the contract. Leader of the AFC, Khemraj Ramjatan, and this I'm reading here from the Kaitro News, pointed out that the whopping 10 billion barrel increase in oil reserves in the rich Stabroek block is more than enough reason to get the oil company back to the table. So in effect, what the AFC is saying, look, we have had an increase in the amount of oil that is now being pumped. And that is enough reason to go back to the table, because at the time we signed the contract, there were certain projections. Now we are going beyond those projections. The amount of oil that is being pumped is way above what we thought it was at the time of the signing of the contract. And so it is enough reason to go back to the table. Fair enough. Remember Professor Clive Thomas pointing out at the time that the projection of the amount of oil that we would get was underestimated. And he kept saying it was much more. And now, as we look at the amount of oil that's being pumped and the reserves, Professor Clive Thomas was, of course, correct in terms of his projection of the amount of oil. And of course, now with the rise in the prices of oil, in the price of oil on the world market, all of those things are enough reason, I would imagine, for going back to the table. My own view and the WPA's view was that people were making too much about the contract. The contract may have not been the kind of contract that some people would have liked, but we made the point that contracts by their very nature can be renegotiated at any time. And so therefore, you work with what you have at the time of signing the contract. At the time of signing the contract, we have to be thinking about Venezuela, and just imagine if an American company was not there in our oil industry. Think about what the Venezuelans might have done. And so the coalition was saying there were some extenuating circumstances that may have influenced the way, may have influenced their negotiations with. Well, we have the leader of the AFC here. He was in government at the time when they signed the contract. And mind you, this was a contract that was originally signed by the PPP in 1999 under the Janet Jagan government. And there was not much noise at that time. So the fact of the matter is that we are where we are today. And what do we do? And Ramjatan and the AFC are saying, let's get to the table now. The circumstances have changed. And this is, like I said, we in the WP had been arguing this, that you can always go back to the table once the circumstances have changed. So please share the link. Please share the link. We're going to be talking about oil. We're going to be talking with Khemraj also about wages, because the AFC has been talking about wages, wages for public servants, a raise. They have proposed a raise in salary, a raise in the old age pension. You know that our old age pension was raised under the AFC, APNU government, and the AFC saying it needs to be raised more. When we take into consideration the high cost of living, the growing cost of living, then I suppose an argument should be made for that. I will also talk to Khemraj about the quote-unquote oil takings and whether that is trickling down, if you will, to the communities, Amerindian communities, the working class community, the Indian communities, the African community, because sometimes we talk about these things in its larger manifestation without looking at the particular manifestation. So we are going to be talking to Khemraj about that. And if we have time, I'm going to ask Khemraj a question I always wanted to ask him, but never had the time. And that is the role of the AFC and the Indian rebel vote from the PPP that was pivotal in giving the APNU AFC a majority in 2011, and then secondly, giving them the presidency and the majority in 2015. And I always wanted to ask Khemraj what went wrong with that pivotal vote. Very clear. If you look at the African Guyanese vote in 2011, 2015, there was not an increase in the vote when compared with previous years, somewhere around 70-something%. So, although we don't have exit polls and all of that, in my estimation, it is clear that the difference, at one seat difference, in 2011 and 2015 was as a result of the rebel Indian Guyanese vote that the AFC brought. And I want to know what happened. What happened with that vote? And what are Khemraj's thoughts on that? Because he understands the Indian community. He understands the PPP and the relationship of Indian Guyanese to the PPP. And I think he understand what happened to cause that fracturing of that almost Indian Guyanese, almost monolith as far as voting is concerned in 2011 and 2015. What went wrong, if anything went wrong? So those are some of the questions we're going to be discussing tonight. Please share the link and let everyone know that Politics 101 is here, and Khemraj Ramjatan, leader of the AFC, is here with us. Let me bring in Khemraj.
Well, thank you very much, David. Some very challenging issues we're going to be dealing with, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and we will have a pretty nice discussion here this evening.
Thank you very much, my brother. Let's start with the first issue that I introduced, and that is the issue of the AFC's position that you're ready to join the PPP in bringing Exxon and perhaps the other companies. I know there are Chinese in the industry. There is a British company, bringing them back to the table. What is it that prompted this, if you will, new position of the AFC?
Well, it was as a result of the changed circumstances of so much more being the reserves that are being found in that Stabroek block. And we now know that CGX has also found some oil in its block. And CGX, I understand, would like to have the same arrangement that Exxon has and things like that. And of course, CGX has paid the government of Guyana, then the PPP government, over $10 million as a front-up payment to do that maritime tribunal that they had with Suriname. And what is being told now, from my information, is that before they can go into production, they would like to have an agreement just like Exxon. They had wanted the 1% royalty and 50% share with all the various tax exemptions and similar terms. But we understand the government, although it had signed on and promised them, not going to give them that because they're saying that they will look bad. Well, our new position is as a result of the changed circumstances. A lot of oil are in that Guyana shield, Guyana, the maritime waters out there. But moreover, and one of the arguments that informed us in going this way is the fact that the PPP, and especially Jagdeo, lied to the people of Guyana when he said during the course of our administration that the deal we made was a rotten deal. And that is why we are saying, well, why you don't go and renegotiate? Because you had promised the Guyanese people that once you get into government, that the PPP, Ramjatan and Granger and all of them, Moses Nagamutu, they made a rotten deal. And so we are going to give you a better deal. And then you get in there and then you start talking about sanctity of contracts. He beguiled, he misrepresented, he fooled Guyanese people. And so that promise that he said that, and the PPP indicated in its manifesto, remember, I think it was page 14 of the manifesto, it has it that they're going to renegotiate the deal. Now all of them are telling, especially the sugar workers, who are a very conscious lot. I speak to them a lot of the time. And I said, look, yes, Mr. Ramjatan, we know they fool everybody. It's just power they want. And they want to monopolize that power now. And so that they're going to utilize the money for that buying of the votes, as it were. But I want to state that we must not be too distracted or diverted from what I regard as the main issue. The main issue is not necessarily the renegotiation of the contract, because I rather suspect now that, having lied to the public and in view of the fact that he now knows a lot about sanctity of contract, although we in the Alliance for Change would help him to renegotiate based on the changed circumstances, he's not going to go there. And so the main interest that the AFC wants to see happen is that the money that they're getting from the contract, that is equally and equitably distributed via the infrastructural works, via the contracts that will be given, via the agricultural development, and so on, so that every Guyanese, and not an elite class that is connected to them, these authoritarians within the PPP, so that we can all enjoy the fruits of that oil and natural gas revenue stream. And it is in that context that I want to let viewers out there appreciate it. Jagdeo lied. All of them lied when they said that they're going to renegotiate. And although we now indicating that, yes, why not? We can help them. We would like to be at the table. We will, even if we got to take a back seat. But we can tell the people there that because of the changed circumstances, any contract could be renegotiated. You give me your minting money, and why not? Yeah.
Yes, Khemraj. And we're going to come to how the sharing of that of the share of the money that we are getting and how that is going to be distributed. But let's go back to at the time of signing the contract. Of course, in hindsight, one can look back at something that happened 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and say it was terrible, and so on and so forth. What I'm asking you here to tell my viewers is this. What were the factors that influence the kind of contract that you signed, you meaning the APNU AFC government?
Look, just after we were told that we found oil, Maduro signed a decree, a maritime decree, that took up all that maritime waters in which Stabroek Block resides. Also, we were being told by ExxonMobil that, we had an agreement based on a certain 2012 model, whereby, and it was arranged by Jagdeo himself, that said it is 1% royalty, 50% profit share, and there wasn't even a signature bonus. We got a little extra bonus, and so on. And this is the model agreement with all the ring fencing and all the tax exemptions and everything. And Exxon was saying that, you remember in 1999, they signed an exploration agreement with Janet Jagan when she was president. The exploration agreement was for a 40-year tenure. So when they knew that they're going to find some oil in this Stabroek Rock, because in 2012, some 13 years after, they went to Jagdeo and indicated to Jagdeo that assuming we were to find oil under the Petroleum Act, then we have to sign up another agreement called the Petroleum Production Agreement. And we would like to know now, before we start spending more monies, exploring and doing all kinds of things, what will be our production agreement looking like. And so the 2012 model was given to them by the PPP government. Jagdeo don't want people to know about that. So he kind of cribbed and confined us into that 2012 model. We now got Venezuela, Maduro making lines saying that all the oil is his. We also knew now that we got an agreement, a model agreement, in which the previous government, PPP, had indicated that it is 1% and 50% with all them exemptions and things like that. We started negotiating and telling them that we are going to have to get a better deal. We asked for more royalty. They said they're not going to go more than another 1%. We also had learned about the CGX paying $10 million to the government of Guyana, Jagdeo them, in relation to the maritime tribunal costs. And we indicated at that time that we would have to get what is called the issue resolved, because this diplomatic way of resolving the Venezuelan border dispute was not going anywhere. We have to carry the thing to the ICJ, and ICJ lawyers and the whole process will cost in the vicinity of $10 and more million. And the people said, well, fine, we're going to give you a signature bonus that will go towards the legal cost of the ICJ, whatever. And then that money was put in the bank where they put the monies. A lot of people said that how we thief the money and all kind of stupid thing. Well, Barrett them took $10 million from CGX. So we indicated to the people that, look, we wanted a better deal with the royalty, a better deal with the profit share and the tax exemption. This is a powerful company, David. They literally left us with, all right, we could lock it off there and wait. We were saying that sugar has taken up so much of our blasted monies from the treasury. Taxes that we were collecting, we had to put into the sugar industry. Taron Khemraj and all of them were saying that we have to find, for this country to move forward, a new revenue stream. When the people now come and say, well, this is what they're going to get, we're going to get. And when we calculate the monies, it will be in the vicinity of billions of dollars. We had to say, and by the way, there was another thing that was also a consideration that caused us. The green movement was saying that within 10, 15 years, there must not be any fossil fuels because the world's climate change and the world is changing and all kind of thing. So we had to make a decision whether to go there and take it out so that we could get some money. Of course, Exxon will mint money, but what will we get if they don't do it? And a lot of people don't understand that. That was the what you call the place we were positioned in. And we had to make a choice. What kind of choice do we make? Do we listen to Jagdeo when he was saying that the deal is rotten? We went on this oil thing and so on. We indicated to them basically what it is that we are doing. They were saying it is rotten. A lot of people must go and check them about the 2012 model. Is only Christopher Ramis talking about it. Jagdeo wants to divert attention from that. So we had Maduro on the Western Front. We had internally a contract that is binding, a model, and a powerful company. Then the important argument that y'all want to leave the oil in the ground there, or you want to take it out within the next 10 years and get some money so that we can pay sugar workers, because it's taxpayers' money from public servants we got to pay sugar workers with, and all kinds of things. And in that context, there must be fairness as to what we decided on. And so we decided, well, fine, let us give it, because we know that the contracts could be renegotiated. We also know that changed circumstances in law can also help in that regard. We also know, too, that litigation by people like Christopher Ram and them could be in our favor, too. Well, they could take it to court, and if the court ruled that certain things are unconstitutional or was unstatutory, whatever, we can then deal with all of that. I personally thought that all of these things can happen. Later on, by public activism, there can be what is called a more perfect contract for all of us. Well, the case is going on, but the biggest thing was, don't fool your supporters to turn up to an elections, get into government, and then tell them about sanctity of contract. That thing is cruel. That thing is uncouth behavior on the part of Bajagdeo and them. And that is why I'm saying that he's not good for this country. And he is now criticizing us, giving a narrative as if we did wrong. Well, you know, it is with that same money that he's now giving it $28,000 to pensioners. He giving his buys them big, big contracts all over the place that ain't no nothing but contract, that he's buying the votes. He's running now to Linden. He's running all over the place. This is what he is doing. That is not how you run a country. Taking away money from Idpara, monies that is well spent in almost a stellar performance in relation to the integrities of the fund. He don't want to tell us how much people in the sugar industry got back a second severance payment. He don't want to tell us how much of or who are the fisher folk that got monies. He don't want to tell us who did not get monies from the COVID relief and the flood relief. Some of his friends and family them get $8 million and other people get $25,000. That is what we are now more the priority. Where is money going? Because a lot of people are saying
We seem to have.
yeah. We also have been asking for transparency as to this money. We have been asking, please put on the website where this money is going. We also asked in the last budget, when $607 million were in the kitty, what you call the Natural Resource Fund. They then take that and they transfer all of it into the consolidated fund. And then we ask them that the law says it must go for developmental projects or emergency issues, emergency projects. Which emergency project and which developmental project, $607 million US, I think it's 127 billion Ghana dollars, where it gone? Show me 5 billion gone here, 10 billion gone here, whatever it is. Because remember, there are other revenue streams like the taxation and so on, VAT and things like that. But specifically, the Natural Resource Fund, you have to pinpoint where the natural resource, that is the money from oil and gas, going. They did not want to answer the question. When we were asking the individual ministers during the course of the debate and during the course of the Committee of Supply, the speaker was saying at the end, you can ask Ashni Singh that. And he could know because he set up the... When we ask Ashni Singh, you know, the speaker and all disallow the question. I mean, you have to get angry sometimes at the speaker. And we are very close, but there it is. Nothing was answered. All they said is that the money has gone into this $500 billion budget. So is a lot of unenlightened speculation will go on now. And people are going to feel that they're stealing. And when you're not transparent, just like how America did it, America, I think, gave everybody 2,000 US dollars as as a relief. And everybody could be identified who got it, because in their digitized system, they made clear we got the written records, as they said, who collect the money and sign for it and so on. They could even get clerical staff that could put it on a website, but they don't want to do it because you know what is going to show? And I am hearing from my sojourns out into the countryside and so on, is their friends and family got that money just to buy the votes, because people are suffering as a result of the inflation. And so they're ensuring that their supporters get it. And that is why this discrimination and talk about an emerging apartheid state. Put it on the website. Let me see who and who got the monies. And when they put it there, you would see for yourself, David. And so that is what I feel should be the priority. The renegotiation, unless, of course, you have Exxon wanting to renegotiate, Exxon could tell you, no, I'm not renegotiating. And that could be the end of the matter. Just like when the PPP said that we are not going to put up the procurement commission. You have to jam them very hard. And you have to win an elections. Then you get a public procurement commission. Although the Constitution established the thing, they do not want transparency. That is one of the things about this. This PPP love to raid the treasury. And that is what they do. And so when we gave them, I mean, the largesse and the legacy that the AFC, APNU government, the coalition government left them, it was unimaginable. It was a dream, you know. And this is what a lot of people must appreciate. When we went into government, sugar was dying. We had to right-size the bloody thing by spending $36 billion in the first 3 years of our government. And then after we done spend that money, we had this Jagabat, Charandas, then gone and do all kind of thing with the no confidence motion and so on. So I want us to understand that it's in that context then that we now have to appreciate what is happening to that money. And I want to make this additional point too, David. You go to sugar workers. They know, because they said that I have been speaking the truth about the sugar industry. Their next generation, their children, they don't want to go cut cane. They don't want nothing to do with cane. A substantial amount of them. They would like jobs in this oil sector and also the nuclear effect that the oil would have, like shore bases, other businesses, agro processing, agriculture, aquaculture, and so on. They want training in those things. Not electrician, all those things. They don't want. They appreciate, how they were fooled. And when now they go to the shops and baigan price gone up, bora, aloo, dal, everything gone up, cooking oil. Some of them don't eat 2 times a day in the estate areas now because they ain't getting money. And you know, when I say a couple of things, some of them just tell me, Mr. Ramjatan, are you money there? What you cost them people for? I said, but y'all got to be fair. If y'all getting the money, East Indians, you got to ensure that the public servants get some money too. You know, the people did not raise as we did the percentages wise the salaries of public servants. And now they're going and give Christmas time here at $28,000 to the pensioners. So it is important that we understand why we did what we did, and the story will be told. Those were the larger reasons. You got Maduro and so on, and you got a contract that was a model. You got the fossil fuel, Greenpeace movement talking, all kind of thing. And we also had made commitments because we signed on to the Paris Agreement. You understand? We had signed on to a green state development policy. So we said, let's take it now. Okay, and this is a good agreement at this stage. That is why I am saying, in the circumstances, you have to regard that oil petroleum agreement there as the greatest economic decision ever made. It is from that money that the PPP could do all the disasters and catastrophes it is now doing, with discriminatory spendings and discriminatory buying outs of votes in the areas and so on. So
Khemraj
in that
Ramjatan,
context, it should be understood.
yes, Khemraj Ramjatan, leader of the AFC, with us here tonight. Of course, laying it out. First of all, explaining what were the circumstances in which the oil contract was signed by the APNU AFC government. Context, moment, place, time, the fusion of all of those are important in anything that you do in public policy. If you talk about public policy outside of the context, outside of the moment, outside of the gathering of the factors, then you are being dishonest.
That's
You're
right.
being dishonest. And it is that dishonesty that is caught up with the PPP now, because they are now in power. Well, go renegotiate the contract. Go, since it was so bad, right? What are you now talking about sensitive contract? Any contract can be negotiated anytime the two sides decide they want to negotiate it. Thank you, Khemraj, for laying that out. Let's talk here, and you've begun to talk about it. Now, we know the African Guyanese representatives, both in the political party, outside of the political party, have been saying, look, what we are getting from oil is more than we ever had before, and it's not trickling down to us. Let's talk about what's happening among the Amerindians and in the East Indian community. You already started to talk about whether, in fact, this money is trickling down to the East Indian community, and how it's trickling down, and whether the way in which it's trickling down is sustainable in the long run for East Indians. They may think that it makes an immediate effect, these handouts and cash grants that are going to the East Indian working class. They may think that it's a benefit, but is it in the long term, in the medium term, is it really beneficial? Talk to that question, and then talk about what's happening around Amerindians as far as the AFC is concerned.
Well, in the Indian community, East Indian community, Albion and Skeldon and a number of places, and also and more and wheresoever else, you get a fertilizer distribution in Essequibo at some of the rice farmers and so on. They have been getting grants for huge sets of money when you compare to what it is well known that they earn for seed paddy. They're getting seedlings now. Them boys tell me that it seems like Zulfikar and Irfan get more seed than Baigan now. They're sharing seed all over the place. But whatever it is, it's a good thing. I would like them to share as much of that as possible and to all over the country. But this is what they're doing. They're also, apart from these grants, which I want, not more than want to believe, which I am absolutely certain of, buying the votes of their East Indian base, with lots of money being distributed to their friends and family and also their support base. They're also doing some $40,000 for a 10-day walk per month. You know? And that $40,000 for 10-day walk, they now are cleaning up some trenches and parapets and doing things like that. And I don't know if you're going to build an economy like that. From all my readings, and of course, people like Dr. Clive Thomas can tell you lots more, was telling us that that is not how you build discipline into a productive workforce. Doling out. What you got to do is to ensure that you get training, vocational training. We had trained a whole set of, I remember for the COVID, these girls all over the place as medical assistants,
Yes, yes.
and they were collecting a small piece and so on. The PPP just dumped them. And, I rather suspect that they were dumped largely because they were Afro-Guyanese. Because you got to give me a good reason why I shouldn't think that way. Then the nurse school in Linden, they closed them down. A lot of stupidness happening. And as I have said, it is going to create some damaging fissures in our society to the extent whereby this thing could be misinterpreted by some people or interpreted properly. And some people, lone wolves. I had done about 20 years ago when Feynman and all of them had started their nonsense at Buxton and that kind of thing, that lone wolves are going to come on the scene, and political parties can't touch them. Political parties can't direct them because they said to hell with the political parties. And so the institutionalized politics that is supposed to ensure transparency and accountability and all of that, you can then have such a horrific scene in the political landscape that it could be violence all over the place. And that is not going to be good for Black people or East Indian people or Amerindian indigenous people. And that is why good governance, as the American State Department and the Vice President and so on call up our president and Barajagde to tell them, look, elections is only one pillar upon which democracy rests. And that is, of course, an important pillar. Of course, we had an ugly 5-year month period, but you have now been anointed the people to run the country. What is the next pillar? The next pillar is good governance. And good governance means the rule of law. It means non-discrimination. It means, you don't cuss down the independent judges that you got. Remember Dharamlal saying that the Janet Cummings should be defrocked? One of the brightest judges, female judges in the Caribbean, and of all the judges too, one of the brightest. And there it is, they're cussing them down. Even the Attorney General wanted to taunt her recently. And I mean, these are big people who know that they got to live with these people inside there. And moreover, also having transparency and accountability. We don't have any accountability now with the monies because the PAC, Juretta Finance, who was trying to get on this program, and I wanted her to talk on it, she has indicated to me, as you know, recently when the Auditor General 2021 report went to Parliament, Eds Hill is saying that he don't want to do the 2019 and the 2020 together so that we could bring up to date how they're spending in 2021 this $607 million. No, they don't want to do that. They don't want us to, inside of their term, it would seem, know how they're spending the 22 monies. And so it is a rapacious corruption and landlordism. They feel that they own the state and all its property, and they're going to be like landlords collecting their benefits and so on. So it is nasty. And we are not seeing this trickle down into the Black communities. We are not seeing it trickle down. Even some Indian communities that I went to 47 Village and so on. A lot of people tell me that they didn't get their flood relief. I went with a friend to Maikoni at the back, right down at the back. Got a rice case that I'm doing. And once at them, people tell me that they never get their money, but they could point out that some that are close to the PPP get $3-4 million, and they get for cow that they never had, and so on. So that is why we want the PPP to put up on a website. Khemraj Ramjatan, he got $3 million for 50 head cow that died and 300 acres of rice that lost or something like that. And his homestead flooded out and this and that and whatever. And so you give him $3 million. Account for every cent because this is taxpayers' money. But they don't want to do that. And do you know who it is that they're getting to go and distribute the money? It is not like a state qualified institution. It's PPP hacks. PPP people gone and share out the flood relief money. So when some of them, you're looking for accountability, you might find them running away. They're doing the thing and exercise books and all kind of thing. And so, it is really, really rotten what they're doing. Infrastructure works that we have asked that they spend the money on. 3 things that I was asking them. The Pomeroon mouth of the Pomeroon River is silted up so high. You got to get something to take. So when they get a low tide, all the water can come out from the Pomeroon. So they ain't going to get flooding inside. But once you get the rains inside, and that mouth is so silted up, when you get the low tide, all the water still backing up. You got to dig out that mouth that created that little mountain inside of that river. Same thing with Mahaica, Maikoni, and the Barry River. That is why the people can't get rice production for the second crop will be the worst in the history of second crops. You take it from me. Just like how they say already the first crop for 2022 has gone, that half-yearly report that we got from the Bank of Guyana governor. So everything, and that is where the curse will happen now, because they're going to run back straight to the oil monies as the curse now. That is where we're going to get this curse, this natural resource curse, as they call it, because they're not doing the infrastructural works that will ensure that agriculture benefits. They're going to give Sis Narayan Singh one set of money for run Gaisuko when we know that Gaisuko don't have a future. You got to open more rice lands. You got to open more lands for cash crops and so on. And that is a major thing you got to do. Clean up all the mouths of these rivers. So when you get your low tide, the whole thing, and then you can use your coca system and whatever to block, and so that water can't come back in. But they're not doing that. They're up on pie in the sky schemes. Oh, we will make an oil refinery, and it will cost $5 billion US. We are going to make the gas to shore, and they can't get a blasted feasibility for that gas to shore up to now. And they're fooling the people. That is why I had to tell them. You remember they fool you about how they're going to renegotiate oil? How they're going to open back Skeldon Estate? They can't open back none of them. But now they're fooling you. Gas to shore, this to shore. All going to go back into this deep sea, and everybody's going to be drowned out. And, it is in that context that I want to bring my points out here, that they continue to fool people. All manner of schemes they got. And when you ask them for the plan for it, or the blueprint, or the design, and whatever, they ain't got nothing design. Nothing.
Khemraj Ramjatan, their leader of the Alliance for Change, a partner in the AFC, APNU coalition, really giving us a panoramic view from the standpoint of his party about where we are today. I want to welcome all of you who have come out in your numbers tonight to hear this discussion, and to welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time. I would like to welcome you onto the show. Bonnie is saying, I like content, others applaud your efforts to educate us. Your analytical breakdown in issues inspiring. Many thanks to you, my brother, and many thanks to you that we are able to do that on this program. And, Khemraj tonight has really shed a new perspective as it relates to this oil and oil contract, because there is this hammering away. Some of the people mean well, but this thing that we sign a bad contract, and the gloom and the doom and so forth, what that argument does in the final analysis is it turns Guyanese away from believing that any benefit will come to the country. And as Khemraj is saying, benefits are coming in spite of the fact that the contract may not have been the best contract. It was a contract that was signed in a particular circumstance. But despite that, benefits are coming. Those who are saying that a bad contract and there's nothing good, they are in fact doing the PPP's work. Because the PPP drying up. I'm not your comment there.
No, well, that is that is very much true. And people must understand too that political and economic judgment calls are are important at the time when they're made. You know, the position of politicians on certain issues depends when those things come up for decision making. It's not as if we can then go and tell the Exxon people, hold on a while, let's see what will happen, and try to pressure them into believing that they are going to give us a better deal. These people indicated, you know what they indicated? They also indicated, well, if we don't have a consensual um, production agreement, petroleum production agreement, we will continue to go and explore to find out where and where got more oil. You understand me?
Yeah.
And we can just cark down that well there and lock it off. And we're going to go now and we're going to go all over the place there in Stabrook Block. It's how much million acres, I mean, how much, whatever it is, a big thing. And they will go and think. Because in the 1999 agreement that Janet Jagan signed for exploration, it's 40 years long. So they got till up, I think, till 2039. You understand me? So they could do that. And then we then look stupid because it takes about 4 years to get these platforms to come from Singapore. So when they told us about this thing and they said it'll take about 4 years or 5 years, they managed it in 4 years because they indicated that they're going to hurry up. They knew the benefits of it. When you got these big corporate entities, they know everything. So they know that there's plenty oil going to come. They could spend the money now and say, well, fine. They could also know the projections of what developments will happen in the world. They're probably going to tell you that there might be a war somewhere and this and that. If you ever read that fella Jurgen's book on oil and so on, they know how to do it. They're the makers of the industry. They set the trends. So what you think you could do with those guys? You better negotiate a better agreement from that model 2012 model that Jagdeo arranged and said, you know, if today, sorry, not today, in 2015, if PPP had won that elections in 2015, they would have got 1%, no signature bonus, and all the same kind of arrangements. You take it from me, because that is what the people would have tell them. You, Barrett, signed on to that 2012 agreement, model agreement. And we did better, and by we got so much of cost, we even lost the elections as a result of it. We did so much for sugar workers by paying them $36 billion so that they could get a salary. And then they and all say, well, no, we got... And they knew that sugar was dying under the PPP. 110 million euros was given over the last 10 years before 2014 and so on. I have already gone through these arguments. Winston Jordan has gone through them. And we had to right size. We're not going to close it down. But, you know, and that is why today when I go now to Albion, when I go to some of these East Indian areas, Mr. Ramjatan, you talk the truth, you talk the truth. And that is hopefully is what might answer some of your question about the role of the AFC. Yes. You got to be with them and explain them.
Yeah, I'm coming, and I'm glad you pivot there. As I said in the introduction, that clearly, even without all the data that you would get in a place like the United States, it is very clear. I think there's a general consensus that in 2011, 2015, that section of the Indian Guyanese vote, which the AFC was able to bring into the coalition. One can argue that they may have voted for coalition politics, but the conduit was the AFC. And I think in 2011 and 2015, it made the difference. There is the argument that in 2020, some, if not the vast majority of that rebel vote remigrated. First of all, do you share that perspective? And if you do, what in your estimation, 2 years out, as the AFC look back, what may have gone wrong?
Well, look, I want to state this, David. The fact that we got 219,000 votes in the 2020 elections and meant that we did even better than what we did in 2015. And when I check through ballot box by ballot box, it is not as if there was a drastic diminution of the votes in those areas in region 6 and all of that. It was not in region 5. We should have done so.
We seem to be getting some static coming there from Khemraj. While we await him coming back on. Khemraj Ramjatan here
Yeah,
with us
well,
tonight.
it is coming off. Like, I don't know if our connection
we are
is so
hearing
bad.
We're getting you a little clearer now.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that I do not believe that we did not flake in those areas as we did in 2011. I think what transpired is that some of our supporters felt that we did not do enough for them. And I mean here APNU and the AFC supporters. And so they did not turn up. Young blacks, in my view, when I did the analysis, did not turn up. Somehow they felt that we're going to win it because of all the work that we did, notwithstanding that some of the... But as I told them during the course of the campaign, when talking to them individually, and sometimes at the meetings, that we ain't got the oil monies yet. And do not allow an opportunity to be missed. Because if it's in the hands of the PPP, it is going to be stolen. There's going to be a lot of skullduggery. And you know, immediately after the Ghanaian and 1 year after, Transparency International dropped them down by 4 points. Thiefing start again. So a lot of them now, when you're going to talk to them, they say it's damn true. This oil money should not have been in their hands, not in Jagdeo and these other fellas' hands. And a lot of them too are saying that the promises were not kept. But we are also talking to them on the ground. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday. Was it Monday, Tuesday? I was meeting some of the sugar workers at the PNC office in New Amsterdam. These are people from this side of the river, Quarantine side, who then have to go to Blairmont, and they're not being paid their detainance allowance. So I had to go and take some statements from some of them now because we'll have to carry the matter to court. And you know what the PPP is saying? And GAU, them now want to let the people be represented by GAU on this issue. They said for the 2019 and 2020 up to the August 2020, let the APNU AFC coalition pay all the detainants. We gonna pay you from when we get into government. And when we right-size the Rosal thing, the people were moving out and we said we're gonna pay them, but we didn't have. Remember, we had to pay severance payment and it was out of the consolidated fund. We were having some hard time because we did not have the oil monies. But we indicated that as soon as the oil monies come, they will. And the PPP now saying, go and ask Ramjatan. Ramjatan go pay you. They're now it's a constitutional deprivation of property for that 2 years. And it's almost all those sugar workers there, about 4 of them are black people. I understand the rest get in the thing. Now that is discrimination. You know, and this was the kind of thing that we have to stop doing in this country. Because when people now, and sensible people too, young people and so on, can get revolting. They can be revolted by this kind of pattern of governance and so on. And as I have warned the PPP whilst I was a member of the PPP, as to why fine man and all of them going along doing stupidness, is because we are not satisfying some of the other constituents. And we got to do it transparently. Of course, when you start talking things like that, Jack, they want to throw you out to the party, and then he throw you out. He expelled you. When people like Ralph Ramkaran start telling him, boss, you got to get a little more large-hearted and broad-based and broad-minded, he literally shelved Ralph Ramkaran, and that is what he did with Moses Nagamutu too. And so he is like the superior numero uno there, the big thing, the authoritarian, the Putin. And he could do whatever he wants. And you get Irfan Ali, who, I think he's going to do better because he got a heart, but he's been constrained and restrained by Jagdeo. And that is not going to be good for this country. We got to allow this thing to happen all over the place. And even within, I tell you this, David, my reading of the situation, even in the East Indian areas, is that they said they're not going to vote back for the PPP. Now, I want that. When a PPP man go inside of a ballot station and he see the cup, he go put the X next to the cup. You got to get the PPP man not to turn up.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thesis.
Because when he go there, some of them might want to vote AFC as they did in 2011 and so on, and gave 5 seats, 7 seats, and things like that. But generally, even some of my supporters, their members, when I went back to 47 and asked them, I had 84 members for the AFC. And when the results come out, it's 34 votes AFC get in that village. I said, well, after the other 50. I said, I watch you sideways. Boss, and when I go inside there, we got to vote for the cup, man, and vote for the cup. And so I said, well, why didn't stay home? It would have worked out better. And that is one of the things we got to tell them, because the minute they go in there, they're going to vote for the cup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you got to tell them that, is this what you want? When now Jagdeo going to fool you about renegotiation and fool you about all the other big projects they got, and they can't really design nothing yet. This bridge going to make, and that bridge going to make, and Schooner Road going to make, and this, and you think anything will make? So it is important that is also another cultural nuance that you got to understand as a member of this country. And I'm, telling people like Aubrey Norton and telling a number of other people, the blacks within the AFC leadership too. You got to flake off, but you also got to get some of them PPP guys who not going to vote for you once they go in. Stay home, man. Yeah. Go back down or something. And that's the game changing that is required. Because sometimes you tell them turn up when they're gone in there. You think they vote for you? Mm-hmm. They cost the PPP outside. But when they go in there, they know one thing. And that is what the propaganda of the PPP is good for. They make angels through the narratives they create. They don't want the elections petition to be heard, but they're calling us riggers. Let the court decide indeed if there was nonsense that happened and at whose hand it should be fall. Why not? No, but block it. Block it, block this, block that. Carry it to the CCJ. Well, the CCJ going to rule on the 19th whether, the Roxanne George, Chief Justice's, Honorable Chief Justice decision is appealable. I don't know which apex court is going to say that a superior court can't review the decision of a high court judge. No court take away and oust themselves from jurisdiction to scrutinize unless it is expressly stated so inside of the Constitution, which is the supreme law. This Constitution didn't say that that is express provision. So we're going to see what they are. But the trouble is, they are not desirous of having any scrutiny at the level of the High Court in relation to discrepancies. 4,400 people who were not in the country. 88 or 90 people that died still voted and so on. They don't want to let the court hear that. They're frightened. They frighten the court. So they now gone and do their own commission of inquiry. I believe the commission of inquiry might very well surprise them too. And say, well, hey, what happened here? So they now want all the information from Claudette Singh, and Claudette has been giving them. A lot of people might be critical of Claudette, but it is her call. She's like the lady in charge. And if she gives them, well, I might have a certain opinion about it. But look, I voted for Claudette to be there, and I got to live with her decision making. And okay, there will be times when I'll be critical of her. But at this stage, the PPP don't want our court system that will be scrutinized by a court of appeal and that will be scrutinized by a Caribbean Court of Justice to be the body that is going to deal with all this mischief. They want a commission of inquiry. And so I am saying, look, and I am hearing, I don't know, I want to bring this out that for you to know a thing here. You know of something called Turkine Polling Institute? They did a poll recently.
I saw somebody was telling me about it.
Yeah. And what they're having is that the PPP is at 43.4%, PNC at 43.2%, and the AFC is almost 8%. So I want it to be understood too that when you are a third force, and we started off with a 7%, we didn't really lose membership to the extent that we didn't regather back with newer members. And we have been formidable as ministers too. Security, David Patterson, one of our best. Infrastructure, Kathy Hughes, and so on. So a lot of people still know of us because we are there. We are carrying a fight too, sometimes beyond our weight and so on. So when people say AFC dead, and they got some of them jagabats within the various chat lines talking the crap that we dead, well, let them feel so. But they must go and do a poll and find out what it is. And I would like to see whether this poll, how many people and so on were there. And it is important because it is showing that indeed we still are very much relevant as a third party in a multi-ethnic society. Very much relevant. And we are not going to give up hope. We are going to use our parliamentary seats. We're going to use our regional democratic councillors. We're going to use our party groups all across the country. And we got in every region. We are going to use those to ensure that the AFC remains. We would prefer to have a constitutional reform that says we can collate after an election.
Yes.
But the PPP not going to want that. And it's a 2/3 majority. The PPP not going to want that. So we are thereabouts, David. We're going to do our statements. We're going to do our national conferences. All the paraphernalia that is what goes along with a political party, we are going to maintain that. And we're going to ensure that we do our party meetings. We got to do a little rural guerrilla warfare in politics here in Guyana. The minute they know where Ramjatan been last week, they gone and tell the people one set of nonsense. When David Patterson goes, they gone, and the PPP that is, they follow them. So when we say we go in Anna Regina, we gone Skeldon. And we got to see people there.
Yes.
That is what you got to do. I mean, that is how I was trained inside of that PPP. I rather suspect that if I wasn't trained in the PPP, I wouldn't have get it done like this.
Khemraj Ramjatan here tonight, leader of the AFC, giving us his perspective on the issues of the day as it relates to oil, as it relates to politics of the third party, as it relates to the PPP's governance. And as we do it on this program, we always try to bring the different perspective so that you can form your opinion. Closing thoughts, Khemraj?
Well, I want these viewers out there and listeners to be careful about the argument that the PPP is going to come with. Barrett is a master blaster when it comes to shoot and scoot. He's going to create an issue, like, and then the renegotiation, and then he shoot to that, and then he scoot out. He don't want the argument to be taken to its finality. He never wants that because he never thinks things through. Although a lot of PPPites feel that the man's knowledge is encyclopedic. I heard Charles Ramson tell me that the man, Junior that is. I said, well, why? All right, well, that is your opinion. That is not so for me. But But that is where he's good at. And then he'll create an issue, then dodge the issues when people now come and counter it, and so on. Or people come with better arguments. And so that the Guyanese people must learn for a better democracy. First of all, you have to get the arguments put together. The true state of affairs, the facts as it were, the truth. And don't allow the PPP to toss your head with their narratives of all kind of profundity, not very profound analyses and so on. Profanities is the word that they cuss you down, they chase you, they say, oh, you got dildo and that kind of thing all over the place, even in Parliament and so on. They're profane. But the profound arguments will come from the opposition. It will come from a David Hines program. It will come from myself. And I would want you to just listen to us. You can listen to the PPP too. And for PPP supporters, listen to the PPP. But also give us your ear so that you can become better at understanding the arguments of the other side. And so that the narrative is not just going to be narrow in the sense of only being PPP oriented, that you must believe. So thanks, and a very good night to you, David.
And thank you, Khemraj, for coming through and sharing your perspective and the perspective of your party. Thank you very much. And to you, our audience, what will we do without you? What will this show be without you? Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, large numbers. We had a full school tonight, and we heard the PPP's perspective. We're going to try in the new week to have Mr. Aubrey Norton on. We haven't had him on in a couple of months, for him to come on to give the PNC perspective on things. And of course, we'll try to get a WPA on to give their perspective on things. So have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Relax a little bit, because you know this politics thing could get you real tired. Relax a little bit and be ready next week as we come back to get behind the news and to give you all the analysis that you need. And as usual, you know,